to Suits and Sneakers, a series featuring sage advice and candid conversations with seasoned leaders from diverse backgrounds and styles. I'm your host, Carrie Tuttle. With my guests, we deep dive into the areas of team engagement, motivation, and effective performance management. Get ready to be inspired and transform your approach to leadership. Please like, subscribe, or follow to be notified when episodes are released. Let's get started. Today, I'm thrilled to chat with Margaret Glover. Margaret is a strategic product leader with over 20 years of experience growing businesses, launching new technology, and entering global markets. Margaret's background spans product, marketing, and operations, giving her a unique ability to scale products and teams with impact. As COO at Virtual Gurus, she drove a 678% revenue increase through US expansion. Her holistic approach combines marketing insights, operational efficiencies, and data-driven decision-making, significantly expanding the company's client base and talent pool. At Poynt Corporation, Margaret led global product strategy and marketing initiatives. She played a pivotal role in securing strategic partnerships with industry leaders such as Apple, Google, and Nokia, growing the user base over 20 million globally. She's held leadership roles at Benevity, Deep Surface AI, and Mindfuel, and is passionate about mentoring and building inclusive innovation ecosystems that drive measurable, sustainable growth. That's a mouthful. And regardless, I am so excited, Margaret, that you're here. Welcome to Suits and Sneakers.
Thanks, Carrie. Wow, you make me sound really great. Thank you for that.
Well, I love all of the technical things that you've done and within the space of really building out products. Now, let's just give a bit of background for those of the listeners who maybe aren't familiar with what exactly is product management.
Oh, that's a great question. So from a discipline perspective, it's actually, it hasn't been around for a really, really long time. But when you think about products being built.
Hello, we have a visitor.
We have a visitor. So when you think about products being built, there's the old saying, if you build it, they will come, right? And that doesn't actually happen. And so that was very much an engineering mindset. And what we've seen happen over the last 20 years or so is that this product management discipline has come into play where you're an individual contributor. You're not leading any teams typically as a product manager, but you are bringing all of the disciplines together. So you effectively are the bridge between marketing, operations, customer success, the technology team, and you're talking to customers, getting their insights, you're bringing that back to the team, and then helping the team iterate the product from there. So it really is this kind of, CEO of a product, if you want to look at it that way, right? You're in charge of the product that's being built without having people that you are actually responsible for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Well, and I love that aspect of leadership because here in this ecosystem, we have people who are either aspiring to be leaders or maybe in a state of transition. And there's this aspect of leadership that can often be influence more so than direct reporting relationships. So that'll be really cool to dive into that. But I have a fun question for you before we get into that.
Okay.
What do you wear to work? Suits. It doesn't have to be suits or sneakers, but what do you like to wear to work?
Sweatshirts.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's because I work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And I am, very much, again, not having a lot of one-on-one meetings over Zoom or video chat. So yeah, I'm in as comfortable clothes as I possibly can be. If I'm going to the office, sneakers.
Yeah, very 100%.
Cool. Or Blundstones.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay, so from that perspective, it sounds like there's a lot of sort of project management and also analysis that goes into that. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've used analysis to help launch products?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm just going to correct a little bit. So project management is a completely different discipline. Product management, you're doing organization, but you're not necessarily managing a project, if that makes sense. There's distinctions between the two disciplines
Awesome.
anyway.
Thank you for making that distinction.
No worries. So probably the very first time that I realized I was using data was at Poynt. And we had 20 million users around the world using our app. So we could actually start to dive in and look at, so if somebody wanted to go to eat, we would set up geo-targeting, geofencing around different restaurants and what have you, so that as a person was coming into that area, we could tell them about restaurants that were near them. So from a data perspective, why that mattered is because if you've got 20 million people doing all of these searches for restaurants, movies, shopping, so anything that was lifestyle oriented, we could really dive in and take a look at where people were shopping, where they were going to movies. And then we could translate that into for our ad team so that they could go out and target advertisers to sponsor in the app and what have you. So that's one way. And then the 80-20 rule always comes into play, obviously. So really understanding your demographic. You've got 80% of users kind of doing 20% of things. So really zeroing in on when you're building new features, those 20% of users who are doing 80% of the things, really understanding what it is that they're looking for, what means something to them, the types of solutions that they want you to bring. So we very much did that at Poynt as well.
Okay.
So I had a beta group that I called my brand ambassadors. They were very heavy users of the app. And so when they sent in feedback, I would actually analyze all of the feedback from those people in particular. And that would help us prioritize how we were building out the product, what new features, what new products within the app were really something that was going to resonate with the folks that were using it. Really, I stress all the time, understanding what the users are looking for, what problems they have, helps the product team actually build a solution that fits those needs rather than solving problem number 97 on a list of 100. You're solving problem 1 to 5.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm thinking of some of the companies that you've worked with, I think, are also services, not necessarily an actual physical product that you can touch and feel.
Mm-hmm.
How is the product management approach different with services?
Oh, that's a good question. I have to think on that a little bit. So probably Virtual Gurus is really the only service company that I've been at.
Oh, okay.
But we still had a tech platform that we were building out.
So,
So
just for people who aren't familiar with virtual gurus, maybe just give a little bit of a 20-second.
sure. So they're a two-sided marketplace that provides virtual administrative assistance
Okay.
to folks who don't need to hire full-time staff.
Okay, perfect.
And so, yeah, so even there, building out the platform was very much driven by data, but you can also use data around churn and retention to beef up that service side of the offering, the human interactions between the
Mm-hmm.
client service team and the virtual assistants, the client service team and the clients. So there's still a lot of data that you can mine there to understand how to make your product better.
Mm. Yeah, and it makes me think of like if you think of everything that we do for both our clients and even internal clients, there's tasks. Maybe we can break it down to tasks that you can then measure or count or put time around and measure productivity, measure quality, measure, percent on time. There's all kinds of things that you can measure, and I think a lot of people struggle with that when it comes to services.
Yeah, but again, even in a service-based industry, how quickly was your customer service rep able to respond to a customer request, right? So even that type of data is there. You know, I did a project a little while ago around, just because I was nerding out on something, around what it would take to increase the efficiency of grocery checkout lines.
Okay.
And it's fascinating when you think about the different technology tools that you can enable to create, you know, a 2-second improvement in each checkout.
Mm.
Over the course of a day, the time saving is immense. So, right? So it's even minutia like that if you're really attuned to it, there's data everywhere that you can find and figure out how to use it to your benefit.
Okay. Can we put you in charge of hospital waiting rooms and let you go nuts on that data because I think we could all benefit from that.
I know. Okay. Funny side story. When I was at Poynt, we sponsored a NASCAR team, and I was fortunate enough to go to one of the races and sit trackside with the race team owner, Rick. And as cars are coming into the pit, and this whole team comes out to change the tires, right?
Hmm.
And it's so synchronized. Rick told me that actually came from watching surgical procedures. So the entire way that tires are changed on a NASCAR tire, and I don't know about other racing sports, but on a NASCAR, is actually taken from mimicking what they're seeing in a surgical suite from a coordination perspective. So, you know, that in and of itself is data. And it's amazing how, again, there's so much data out there and there's so many opportunities to look and apply it in different areas that, you know, what would you ever think that NASCAR and surgical suites had in common? Now you know.
Well, and that makes me think of in every leadership environment, there really is synchronizing of resources, and it's almost like a dance, right?
It
Like
is.
who's talking to the client today? How do you hand off a relationship from sales, for example, to operations? That kind of thing. So, what advice would you give leaders who are looking at how can I use data to better support the development and efficiency of my team?
Yeah. Well, there's data there, but my biggest thing around creating efficiency within a team is more based on communication than
All right.
data, right?
Okay.
It's communication is often so lacking, especially now with, we're bringing in all of these tools, and technology is great. Trust me, I've worked in it for 25 years now. I love technology. But there's a point when technology and data actually gets in the way of operations and progress because we start to rely too heavily on the data and forget that there are humans behind every interaction that we're having. So, yes, if I'm a customer support person and I I'm talking to a client, I can type my notes into our CRM or what have you, but it relies on the next person to then look at those notes to make sure that they're not kind of duplicating effort, right? So yeah, I'm not sure if that answered that question.
Absolutely. I mean, it took it in a different direction, but I'm actually really excited about that direction because we didn't even rehearse this. So tell me about something challenging that you've had to deal with in staff or, in trying to get a product to either launch or grow. What's a tough situation you've had to deal with the team dynamics?
So it's when to completely go against what I just said. It's when team members start to rely on their own biases instead of looking at the data, right? One of the reasons I love product is because it is so data driven. If you think about the number of times that head of a company, somebody in the C-suite has a very specific feature that they want in their product and the team builds it or doesn't build it. So if they build it, but there's no actual need for it or desire for it on the customer side of things, then you've wasted a bunch of dev cycles.
Mm.
If you don't build it, the best way to actually deal with that is to be able to rely on that data, right? Take the idea out to your user base, whether you have your own brand ambassador, beta testing kind of group, or just your users at large. Hey, we're thinking of launching a new product, a new offering within the service suite. Here's 5, rank them. Show them to us in rank order of what your preference is. And then you can actually take that data back to your C-suite or whoever is requesting that feature and say, this is what the customers are actually saying. So yeah, that's happened more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And, I might be guilty of that too.
So the thing you think is cool and neat may be third, fourth, or fifth on the customer's list of
Absolutely.
most important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really validating. And I think all of us, we've been in business long enough and we are potentially users ourselves. So we go in with a gut or let's call it a hypothesis, and that's fine. But yes, I love your approach of, okay, let's validate that.
Yeah. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When I was at Poynt, we were originally building, it was before smartphones were launched. That's, think back in time. So we're talking 2006.
Like we're talking flip phones.
Flip phones. Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And so we were building a tool that the company was originally called Illumicell, and it was called that because our founder wanted to illuminate the world around people using a cell phone, right? So very forward thinking.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and we had caught the attention of Microsoft, and their chatbot was all the rage at the time, just before smartphones were launched. And so we were fairly far down the road of building a chatbot for their IM and their instant messaging platform. And we started to hear about the BlackBerry. And Brad, who was my counterpart, so I was in charge of marketing, he was in charge of technology. We asked our researcher to go out and kind of do some focus testing around whether there would be any desire for an app. It wasn't called an app then. This is how long ago it was. App wasn't a thing, but this application on a smartphone. And resoundingly, the feedback was absolutely not. What is this phone that you're talking about? Adoption was so low at that point in time. And Brad and I made the fairly gutsy decision based on intuition to go ahead and build for the BlackBerry. And obviously that was a fairly good bet at the time. And so gut comes into it sometimes, right? You have to be able to listen to your gut and really trust that intuition sometimes. I'm not going to say that I would recommend that as a strategy, but yeah, there are times when you just have to kind of take a swing as well, right?
Well, and when it comes to innovation, right? Sometimes customers, especially when it comes to technology, these days things are changing so fast. Customers don't yet know what features they might want or need in some cases. So that's really cool that you guys took a leap and it paid off.
Yeah.
How did you get the rest of the team on board that this was a good idea?
Brute force. I don't know. We were a fairly small team at the time, to be honest. There were, I think, 6 of us, so 7, and so we just kind of went for it. There wasn't a lot of pushback.
Yeah. Okay. How would your colleagues, previous team members, and staff describe your leadership style?
Well, gosh. So even my son says this to me. My son is 19. I'm intimidating.
Why do you think he says that?
Well, it's not just what he says, it's what my teammates would say as well. I think it's because I'm fairly no nonsense. I don't like a lot of bullshit to happen. I don't have time for it. But I'm also fairly certain when I decide to do something, I have a lot of conviction in what I do, whether that's data backed or intuition or just relational. Once I make a decision, it's fairly difficult unless you've got some really good kind of data points to come back to me with to get me to move off of that. And so, yes, I have been called intimidating because of that.
Okay, so you're sure of yourself, and
Yes,
people have to probably provide a lot of information to change your mind. Is that
that's right.
fair? Yeah.
That's very fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I also think I'm fairly compassionate and caring as well.
I can
Yeah.
see that about you. Definitely. And how does that serve you in developing products?
Oh, well, let's see. From the perspective of, being very empathetic, sometimes I'm almost too empathetic and I have to kind of, you know, push that down a little bit. But when I need to turn that empathy on from a product perspective, it's listening to everybody, right? Listening to the customer. What is it that what problems do they have? What are they trying to solve? It's not about the product that we're building at that point in time. It's about what issues do they have. So that's one thing. Being very data driven also, helps when I'm talking to the various teams. If what sales and marketing wants in a new offering is different from what we're hearing from customers, is different from the technical capability of our tech stack, not the dev team itself, but the actual tech stack that we're using. If it's too difficult to refactor something, it's really learning to understand everyone's perspective and then coming together to find how can we do something that helps across the entire spectrum of the people that we're working with and serving.
Would you say that's your superpower?
It might be. It might be. Listening to customers, I think, is definitely one of my superpowers. I am horrible, horrible, horrible at sales, but I was just in the Okanagan a couple of weeks ago talking to wineries and grape growers and building that rapport to get them to share all of the struggles that they're going through, right? You've got 30 minutes of somebody's time. You've had, 2 or 3 emails back and forth before you sit in front of them. So how do you sit down and build that instant rapport so that you can have a really great conversation to learn what it is that they need so that, you can walk away with a sense of this is what we need to focus on to build our product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then translating that for the dev team, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and gaining confidence from the client that you truly understand their need and are the right person to solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like sales to me.
I know. That's why I started.
Sounds like you're actually good at it. Yeah.
I'm good
Very
at having
cool.
conversations and listening
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah. Okay. So, going back to your comment at the beginning about influencing other teams,
Mm.
what are some of the tactics that you use to, I guess, influence other teams to action?
Mm-hmm. It comes down to understanding what's important to them. So if I'm talking to the finance team, they don't care about our tech stack. What they want to know is, how is this going to improve our margins? What's it going to do to the ROI on the product? Is this going to help with unit economics from a build perspective? So it's understanding that and being able to frame whatever you're talking about in a way that answers those questions. Similarly, when you're talking to sales or marketing, it's understanding that sales wants to know how can we, and marketing wants to know how can we best position our product for, getting more leads, closing more deals. So in that instance, it's really about understanding that and being able to say, well, this is what we heard from customers that they're looking for. It's being able to take that information and help the marketing team refine their ICP, the ideal customer profile, so that they're targeting people. They're better able to target who our potential audience is, which is going to increase leads, which will increase conversion. So again, it all comes back to understanding the point of view of who you're talking to.
Okay. So I hear it's like a nuance because a lot of people say, oh, I'm a good listener. But it's not just listening, it's truly hearing and understanding and empathizing is what you're describing. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that can be true of customers, of team members, of every spouses, everyone we talk to in translating concept into a tangible idea or a tangible action plan. Yeah. What makes you most proud in your journey?
Oh gosh. I think the number of people that have worked for me before who tell you afterwards how much they loved working for you, right? And that they would work for you again in a heartbeat. So I think that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, right? Because again, if you take what I said earlier about being fairly intimidating, um, when you're in that situation, with an employee to then hear afterwards how much they actually learned from you and how much they appreciated the opportunities that you gave them or your leadership style, even if it was kind of, again, not comfortable in the moment, the things that they've been able to take away afterwards. So I receive those affirmations fairly frequently, and it always humbles me. And even now, my heart is like just kind of swelling a little because it really, that means a lot. So that's probably the thing I'm most proud of there.
Yeah. Can you share an example of maybe what specifically you did that they appreciated?
Oh gosh. Well, again, I think it depends on who who it is. So one of the devs that I've worked with in the past, he and my son have struck up this friendship. Jude came back from his place last year and was like, "Wow, Mom, I had no idea you were so awesome." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he starts to share all of these amazing things that this dev person was saying about me as far as, you know, giving them space to actually do the work that they needed to. I'm infamous for coming in at the last hour, you know, during a sprint, a dev sprint, and saying, "Oh, could we sneak this in? Like, is there any way to do that?" But even in doing that, you know, being appreciative if they're able to, understanding if they're not able to. Yeah. And again, just letting them do their jobs. As as simple as that sounds, so many people don't let their teams do their jobs.
Hmm. How do you challenge your teams?
Well, I think that, do you know the book Atomic Habits
Mm-hmm.
by James Clear?
Yeah.
So I try and live by that. 1% better every day. And so I challenge my teams by, asking them either implicitly or explicitly to not half-ass it, right? If you're going to give me something, whether it's, if it's, what we call the SFD, the ship first draft of a written piece, let me know that that's what it is, but also make sure that the spelling is correct because I am that person that will focus on going through and correcting all of the grammatical errors, and the context of the content will be lost on me.
It's distracting.
It is distracting, right? And so helping people to actually understand why giving it your best is always it just should be what you strive for, right? So I model that, right? I try to model that. And so it's definitely something that I hope that all of my team members that have worked for me have kind of taken away from us working together.
Mm-hmm. Well, because when you set that expectation, people will rise to it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give now to your younger self when you first took on a leadership role?
I love this question. And so it would be to not be so cocky. And I can say that in humor now, many years later, but when you're young and you're being promoted into a leadership role, you kind of feel like you've got the tiger by the tail and you can do anything, right? Um, and that is only so true. There's, a little humility goes a long way. And so that's taken me a long time to learn.
How do
Yeah.
you
And
apply that now?
I think it goes back to what we've been talking about around listening and and trying to truly understand where the other person is coming from, right? Rather than assuming that you know everything, which I have done and did probably for the better part of the first kind of half of my career. Right? Just and that's why I'm saying, like, don't be so cocky. There are always opportunities to learn from people if you only just give yourself the chance to do that.
Hmm.
And so that's that's again one of the reasons that I love what I'm doing now, because I am able to really hear what they're saying, what the people that I'm talking to are saying.
Talk a little bit about what you are doing now, because it's really different than a typical leadership role.
It is. So I started my own fractional consulting company in January. And so I take on two clients at a time and I become their fractional chief product officer. I work with companies who are either putting new products into market or are exploring a different market opportunity from a product that they already have in market. And I really help them understand who they're building for and trying to make sure that we can get as much success as possible when that product is launched. It goes back to the old adage of if you build it, they will come. That doesn't exist anymore, especially now because the marketplace is so flooded with products, right? And it could be tech products. It could be, I've got like two cups here in front of me. And if you go down the aisles of any big box stores, you can find so many options. So my goal is to make sure that whatever products and teams that I'm working with are set up for the most possible success by understanding what it is that their customers are actually looking for.
Hmm. What are you excited about for 2025?
Mm. It's a big personal milestone for me, right? Going out on my own and starting this. So I'm just really excited about all of the opportunity. Um, I think I told you before, one of my personal mottos now is I want to work with cool people doing cool shit, right? And so there's a
Nice.
lot of cool people doing a lot of cool shit. And so for me, I'm just really excited about that opportunity to help some of them.
And I know you have some cool projects on the go. Maybe it's beyond 2025, but I think there's like a book in the works. Is it
There
okay to say that?
is. Yep, yep. There's a book in the works. It's called The Leap, and it's my story of transitioning from marketing into operations and then having this kind of pivotal moment last year when I realized that I've, you know, I've been doing product all along. And so it's really about what I learned in all of my previous roles and how I apply that to product and, hoping that I can help inspire other people who are in marketing or ops to consider product management as a career and understand what they can do, their superpowers that they already have, things that they're already doing really well. They just need to understand how to apply them in a product lens.
Okay. Can you share what's one golden nugget? We won't give it all away because we want people to read the book later, but
Yeah, no, I probably sound like a broken record, but everything starts with the customer.
yes.
Absolutely everything. If you're not building it around what somebody needs, then you're doomed to fail. And so, how do you figure out what your user actually wants?
Yeah, one of my mentors said to me once, fall in love with the problem
Yes.
and then work every day to fix it.
Yes, absolutely. Don't fall
Yeah.
in love with your solution. Never fall in love with your solution.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, thank you so much for everything you've shared, Margaret. I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners will too.
Thanks so much, Carrie. This has been a lot of fun.
We're glad you joined us for Suits and Sneakers. If you want to be an expert guest, look for the link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be notified of future episodes.